Hello. Welcome to Good Intentions and Bad Outcomes, a podcast about the challenges and situations or practices that you might experience in the workplace, where good intentions have unintended and often unnoticed consequences. I'm Gino Marks.
And I'm Wayne Hetherington.
Hi, Wayne. Every time we share a situation that we or one of our listeners have encountered in the workplace that is challenging in some way, and we discuss the what and the why, and then we try to come up with alternatives on the spot. So let's get started. So, Wayne, you brought the topic for today. So, why don't you just explain it?
Sure. Well, here's something that we've seen lots of times. You've probably seen it too. That we have teams that are working on things. We think it's probably a good idea to protect the team, to give them some space to work in, and we actually shield them from external influences, thinking that they're not going to be distracted. They'll have time to focus, and they'll get more work done. So protecting the team from distractions is a good intention that sometimes has an unintended outcome.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about those intentions. The
hmm
obviously when a team, it's typically happening when a team is working on one of the critical elements or is on the critical path, right?
Okay.
That if they are distracted, the entire delivery slips or the most important features are not, or whatever the major stakeholder is really waiting for is just not happening. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that people can focus, and that's essentially what we're trying to do. And by doing that, what are the kinds of things that can happen, Wayne?
Well, well, I think one of the worst things that can happen is a team actually becomes isolated from everybody else
Mm,
and disconnected. If they're no longer part of the conversations about how the product they're building is developing along or working or interacting with customers or other teams, then they lose context and they become so focused it's almost to the exclusion of everything else, and that can be
right.
disastrous.
Right. And I've even seen it in such a way where the team is not even taking input anymore from because they have a
Yeah,
mandate now, right? They have a
yeah,
mandate to focus. They've been given that mandate, and what they are supposed to do is just move forward and don't look around, right? Or don't look back.
yeah,
And the what I've seen happening is where that team, for instance, the focus or the functionality they tried to work on was actually something that needed to be consumed by another team. And
yes,
the conversation with that other team was no longer happening. And as a result, the team that was building that functionality that was given that mandate to move forward and never look back was building something that the other team could actually never use. So in the
yeah,
end, it had the quite the opposite on the delivery timeline, because now we had to go back and reassess the whole situation and reassess the dependency altogether and see what needed to be done to unblock the team that was essentially waiting
yeah,
for a complete service in the back end, right? So yeah, quite the opposite effect, right? Just because
yeah.
of that focus, because of that isolation, because of that lack of context. So what would be alternative approaches to deal with that?
Well, I've had this discussion with quite a few Scrum Masters because I've come across some Scrum Masters who try to enforce the kind of behavior that you're talking about there. They feel it's their job to protect the team, to
Mm,
shield them from any outside influences. I've even seen them go so far as to say, "You can't talk to any of the members on my team. If you want to come and ask for something, you got to ask me first," and act as kind of a gateway to the team. Which, again, the good intention there, you're protecting them from distractions because there are many, but the bad outcome, um, things get missed and we're not paying
mhm.
attention to the right thing. So I've always talked to the Scrum Masters, is there a way that we can encourage and build in feedback loops so we don't become isolated, but then do it in a controlled fashion so that it's not ad hoc or multiple times per day or per hour. Even sometimes it gets so crazy you're being interrupted almost constantly. Is there
Mhm.
some way we can control this but still build the feedback loops in? And I think that that's been successful in cases where it's been given proper attention.
How have you implemented this? Because I have a couple of examples as well of where I have done it, but how have you implemented this?
Mhm.
Do you have an example?
Probably the most examples come from just working with the Scrum framework. So we've got, if you're doing a 2-week sprint, you've got 2 opportunities at the end of the sprint for some feedback. You're going to do your sprint review, and you're going to ask for your customers to be there and for your stakeholders to be there, and you're going to have open discussion and dialogue. Also,
Hmm.
while retrospective is more for the team, but when you get into the planning session, you're thinking about, what do I have to adjust and who do I have to talk to get the next increment of software done? So that's an opportunity to start to have those discussions. And then
Yeah,
one other thing, you don't want to go any more than 24 hours if you've got a problem. So we've got the daily scrum. And if you take advantage of that to have mini conversations about small things that
yeah,
come up, then you've got some feedback. You're not disconnected. You can even do a scrum of scrums where multiple teams can kind of come together and collaborate on a bigger piece of work, and that
yeah.
that prevents the silo.
Yeah, yeah, it's especially the latter one because those interruptions do happen because they are deemed urgent and they are deemed to that they can't wait until something like a retrospective or a planning session, right?
Right.
Or a demo. And I find the daily stand up to be a little bit difficult in that sense. It oftentimes, if you bring other people into your daily stand up,
Yeah.
willy nilly, that there is a distraction altogether, and the daily stand up no longer serves its purpose. So I've implemented it 2 ways. So one is indeed to have a time slot available after the daily stand up, when people can just show up and ask those questions or address whatever the concerns that they have. But another one is as well, if there's any questions or needs for conversations with the team, that there is a set time every single day that team is available. And I've done it in a way where you just had a flip chart at the beginning of a team room. That team was sitting in its own room, and basically explained on top like, hey, this team is not to be disturbed, or the team wants to focus. But if you have a question, just write it down here so that we don't forget about it. And between this time slot and this time slot, the team is available to answer your questions here on the spot directly. We did the same thing with for instance, a product owner who was not accessible, and
Okay.
but we needed to have that feedback loop from the product owner as well. So we did the same thing. Anyone who had questions for the product owner could not reach out directly because they were dealing with another job, but the product owner committed to being there for a day or a half hour, for an hour or a day, an
Yeah.
hour or a half hour every day. That's what I meant.
Right.
Oh my
Okay.
God, this is hard.
Yeah.
And there was so there was within 24 hours there was always a response, and that commitment
Yeah.
did come through. So that was wonderful.
Yeah.
So those are definitely ways to stay in the loop. I do feel as well that there's another kind of thing happening. So if we isolate a team, then suddenly we taking away that idea that that team is a cog in a larger machine, right? And a valuable cog, and there's no question. But it's about the team. Then suddenly the message
Mm.
is now it's about you. No, it's not. It's about what you are part of, and it's about you delivering something in context of your entire program together with all the other teams that are depending on you, or dependent on the work that you are doing. And so by enabling that team, or at least by ensuring that that this team is still aware of this, and that there are larger consequences to certain things being done or not done, by aligning the dependencies and making sure that that people are aware of what the consequences are of the actions that they're taking, it suddenly becomes a whole different conversation again, right? And it's no
Right.
longer, well, it doesn't matter what you guys think, we just need to get through our plan because that's what we've been told to do. Now it doesn't matter what you all think, because what we do is only a part of the whole picture, right? And it's that whole picture that needs to work. So I think that those two elements, one, the actual distractions that you're taking away, but two, also that commitment to ensuring that you're part of a larger team, and it's not about you, it's really about what the impact is on the entire program that is important.
Yeah.
would you
Yeah.
would you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, just 2 quick things. I like the idea that the team is not a standalone thing. It's in isolation, and sometimes I've seen that happen too, where a team is given a special project and they go off into a special area, and it's almost like this secret thing that just they know about, and you know, yeah, it promotes that that idea of exclusivity, or being better than somehow, and
Yeah.
that really doesn't help a company work together. So, if your teams are doing some planning, there are appropriate occasions in which they should get together in a broader context and start looking at the overall picture. And usually, quarterly planning meetings or horizon planning is a good way to start that communication.
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned was the distractions, and sometimes there are lots of distractions. I think there are some good ways to handle those distractions, because a lot of teams feel, I have to do production support, and a ticket can come in and I got to drop everything and do that. Well, that happens regularly. It can really interrupt the work. So rather than saying, we're going to build a wall around the team and protect them from these things, try to implement a system that will handle the distractions in a controlled fashion. And I love the Kanban board idea, where we've got like a swim lane for emergency items that absolutely have to happen, and then we've got
Hmm.
a prioritized backlog that we can pull from on demand as we have capacity to do so. So that
Yeah.
still keeps the teams focused, but prevents the distractions.
Let's take the exception swim lane as a topic for another conversations, because there is
Yes,
a lot to say about that.
that's
Okay,
right.
fantastic. Well, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you have a situation at work in the past, or even right now, then do not hesitate to call us or to let us know, and we all can discuss the unintended bad outcomes as a result in one of our next sessions. Thank you, Wayne, and see you next time.
Thanks, Tino. See you.